Good afternoon and welcome back to Module 4, which is focused on recovery. Recovery is not about the recovery of data alone, it is also about the recovery of trust. As you can see in this module, besides all of the support that we've had from our industry experts, and we have one more industry expert that will join us in the next session from Darktrace, you've heard very specific steps around containment and eradication. But as our team was discussing, this module will focus on items that perhaps don't necessarily always have to touch the technicalities, but focus on the element of rebuilding trust, not just internally amongst our staff and across the system, but across the country. Joining me are multiple advisors who, again, I would like to thank again for all of their effort and all of their diligence as we've come through together through these 4 modules. And before we start diving deep into this, I am going to very shortly have an update from the media, but I do want to warn you that this update seems very, very misplaced. Before we go to that update, just a couple of housekeeping items again. Very shortly, we'll begin some polls online. So for those who are watching online, when you do receive those polls, please take a moment to respond to them. Multiple offers and multiple lab environments have also been shared online. And as I'm logging in as well, I can see that the CyberX team is consistently sharing a lot of these links. I'm also seeing that there is a message saying, what happened to the CISO? Well, Bill, after making that comment, well, you saw what Walter just did. That happened to the CISO. But of course, just in full practicality, it does get a little bit tiring to be on back-to-back-to-back sessions, and we do shift it up a little bit. We also have a very limited amount of time within which to go through so many different elements. For those of you that are online as well, I thank you for all of your attention. Again, keep the questions coming. And for those of you that are here, if a question comes up, please do raise your hand. As I ask the AV team to queue up that media report, I will again remind you that this report in no way reflects the reality of what was happening in the eradication phase. But I will also remind you that after getting through the eradication phase in day 2, we have now entered day 3 of this scenario. AV team, please queue us up to watch the latest media release.
With ODTN News, I'm Roshan Khan. Tonight, a rare piece of good news. Government systems at Immigration, Refugees, and Citizenship Canada are slowly coming back online. Refugee processing and biometric verification are resuming after days of disruption. But officials caution the human challenge remains. Trust in the system has been shaken, and the backlog of applications could take weeks to clear. Community advocates warn that while the technical fix is welcomed, restoring confidence among those who depend on these services will take much longer. This is ODTN News. I'm Roshan Khan. Thank you for following along with the story.
Thank you. Walter, I know that in the previous module you were busy putting together some of our next steps and engagements and strategic engagements from a comms perspective. There's a lot of concern that here on day 3 in the evening, we are basically hearing from the media that our systems are steadily coming back up. But the reality is that none of this is actually valid. We have most of our locations, if not all of them, still operating pen and paper. Why do you think these kind of reports are still surfacing?
Well, public perception is obviously becomes reality for us, and what we as the government need to do is focus on facts. And so what you want to do at this stage, given that we believe we're past the danger point and systems are coming back online, even given the fact that there are still some challenges and difficulties in making sure that all customers are being properly served, What we want to do at this point is put out a brief report, a press release that describes very simply what the problem was, what we did to fix it, what's new or what's changed in the services that users can expect, citizens and others, and how stakeholders, the different stakeholders, so if you're tailoring it for a public audience, what should the public do, how should they proceed to use the services, and internally inside the government, what does that mean for the stakeholders that support and deliver those services? And then we want to communicate what extra help we can offer. In other words, having a contact line, a 1-800 number for telephone, emails, whatever, so that folks that are still experiencing troubles can contact the government to let us know what issues they're having. I would suggest that given the scope of this problem, that the Prime Minister, as the head of government, would want to give a press conference, if not during the earlier stage of the problem, certainly at this point to say that, okay, we understand generally what's basically happened, here's what we've done to fix it, and reassure the public and the global audience that the Government of Canada has responded appropriately and is getting back to business. The one other thing I would add is, it's from a communications perspective, is you want to start doing some contingency planning. What happens if the problem reemerges or new challenges and problems happen? So you want to start doing some brainstorming on that and how you're going to respond very quickly if indeed you need to.
Right, there's a lot of questions that have come up, and Octavia, if I can come to you and then maybe to Lionel. So one of the things that we're seeing, and of course this was bound to happen, is opposition MPs have been saying, oh, we're spinning good news now while refugees suffer. I'm not trying to make light of that, but we've been focused exclusively on how the system is impacting refugees. But you've also mentioned to us that there are other groups and other services that have also been impacted because of this, and we've, I think very wrongly, just kept it, or part of the fake news campaign, we have been triggered to just focus on the refugee side. What else has gone down in this whole scenario?
Right, as I mentioned earlier, that the Shared Services Canada is actually losing money. And that money actually comes from organizations and businesses as well, who actually pays us to actually process immigration papers and documents, work permits, as well as permanent residency, citizenship applications, and those of the like, and even language tests to make sure that people can actually stay in Canada. So those who are, there are some people, there are some organizations who are also complaining and also coming to us, and they're withholding their money because they have not been able to, some of their executives have not been able to get their citizenship or their permanent residency, or they're not able to renew work permits as well. So at this point, we're also dealing with an economic issue, and some of our businesses are also starting to suffer because their employees cannot work if they don't have proper documents.
Lionel, I want to add to this, is you've heard what Octavia has said. Yes. While I do not have all of these details with me, we are also hearing south of the border consistent comments, which are now resulting in some groups rallying together around this is the kind of problems that immigration causes, refugee crises, and all of these other crises. And now you're seeing narratives around close the borders, close the borders. How are you dealing with this right now as well? And from a recovery standpoint, are there any concerns that you have about escalation in some of the protests and violence that we might see?
Absolutely. So what we actually made sure that we do is first to make sure that the communication when it comes to that crisis, like Walter was saying, it's only the one that come internally that should be prioritized and not necessarily listen to outside noise. So that's why in terms of law enforcement, we're making sure that there's that cross collaboration, and also to piggyback on what Octavia was saying, we are actively working with all immigrant serving agencies right now. So they have a protocol when it comes to communication and also de-escalation to make sure that they know how to face as best as possible that crisis so that they can handle that situation when it comes to all type of profiles that would be looking to access those services urgently. So we made sure that we've trained them, and then now we're also making sure that we remain available in terms of support if also we need to invest way more into, for instance, physical security and all this type of aspect. But for now, we made sure that across the line, all immigrant serving agencies receive the proper training and communication to handle that crisis and not give into panic.
I appreciate that, and I know that the SOC team has been in communications with IT. I'm still very curious about the relationship with CyberX Solutions, but that will be discussed a little bit later. Octavia, can I ask you very directly, is there a risk that certain groups and organizations could even take legal action against us?
That actually is a risk, 100%. As I said, without this, without being able to process this, these immigration forms, you have a chance that companies may not be able to function in Canada, and so that it's a direct economic impact to our GDP. It's a direct economic impact to those companies as well. So we just have to keep that in mind. Right now, we are in communication, so as long as we stay open communication with those organizations, we've actually allowed a stay for a little bit where we know we have a situation, so we're not going to be in a situation where we have to push out people's work and they can continue to work while they're pushing in those processes. But it's a risk. It definitely is a risk, and we need to make sure we're taking care of that risk and mitigating it as much as possible.
Thank you, Octavia. And at this point, and it'll come up on your screens right now, I'm going to go to our SOC lead. Perhaps if Shrey, there's a lot of other non-technical issues from a recovery standpoint, which will take us weeks, months, but definitely not days. But from your perspective right now, it's been a whole 24 hours since we approved some of the eradication steps that were taken. Is there anything to report back on the baselines of what we're seeing?
Absolutely, Ari. And as you mentioned, the main primary restoration is going to take weeks and months, definitely. But since this is a national thing, we have to keep the availability high. As you can see in the status report, the overview states, following the containment and remediation actions, clean system baselines have been successfully deployed to the servers, including the AI engine. That means all the system requirements, all the base parameters which were to be set, they are in place. The systems are back upline. We are looking at the network traffic flowing smoothly. We are still keeping high alert for next little while, making sure that if any threats are there, it is escalated immediately and remediated as well.
Alex, I have to jump in here. My concerns will remain. I'm hearing for the next little while, and then I have my CFO who keeps telling me I need to know the costs of all of this. Define little while for me.
Well, we will have to deploy this in a staggered approach. And there's the building out the infrastructure, building out the networking, then putting the application on, then bringing the data in. I am a bit concerned because I did reach out to CyberX Solutions and for help and told them the plan because they are going to really be key to getting that application online and working. And they forwarded a change request form. Who would I forward that to? Should we get a minister involved to pressure them to, maybe ignore the process of change request right now?
I would.
And this is a financial change request form, not a technical one.
Yeah, go ahead, Octavia, or maybe you.
Yeah, so I'm actually I've been thinking about this for the last couple of days because I was afraid that they were not afraid. I suspected that they would actually do this. And so my change request, I would actually write them back a letter, and again, work with our legal counsel, write them back, and we will actually withhold payment until they actually make this, do this with us. It was their system. I know that, software changes we're implementing onto our systems. However, we will withhold payment. And so if they don't actually come to us and actually work with us as a partner should be, then they will not get their payment.
Okay, I'm going to try to convey that in the side channels, but I think we're going to need a more official response, and maybe that's from the CFO, maybe it's from the minister.
Jarrett, in your position as the Director of Emergency Management, is there any assistance here that you can provide or anything within your jurisdiction that you can provide to assist with moving Alex's request along?
From a strategic and operational perspective, not that I can think of immediately. I mean, again, I'm just right now ensuring continuity of humanitarian services, and public safety and trust is just as important as uptime at this point.
Fair. We do have Amit, who for the last day or two has unfortunately have to field a lot of media questions as well prepped by Walter. Amit, I don't mean to put you on the spot, but I actually do, because one of the questions that we are getting is it safe for us to say that we didn't have the right guardrails in place for this AI system? I mean, we're hearing about random references to where we mapped the MITRE Atlas, which is a framework we could have been mapped to, which could have better prepared us for this. Basically, we're saying we were not prepared from a security perspective. Your perspective here?
Yes. So I would not say that we were not prepared for this. However, I do agree that we did face this. No system is 100% safe, so we cannot say that there is any foolproof system out there. But yes, there are so many things that we have learned from this exercise that obviously we are going to implement in place, and which we are implementing right now. SOC operations is doing their hands are full right now, so they're doing whatever they can at that end, and many other teams are working hand in hand. At this point, quite honestly, I understand some systems have gone up. Personally, I'm not feeling comfortable right now to putting them up, and I'm not sure why at this point we are trying to put the systems up when we are not 100% sure whether they are going to be sustainable. So I am going to take a step back and say, are we ready to put those systems up? According to me, I don't think so. I would love to hear a counter argument to that.
Yeah, and to your point about, well, we were prepared. Kevin online says, well, the economic impact indicator says 41 million in impact so far, which suggests that you were not prepared. Valid point, and that is one comment that has had multiple responses online. SOC team, Shrey, I can see that, and if we can have your screen come back up, I can see that you're going deeper into some of the actions taken towards recovery. Maybe Alex or Shrey, do you want to tag team and tell us what are we looking at over here in terms of the actions you've taken?
Absolutely. So first, starting with the three-staged approach that we took right now. One, we set up the baselines. We redeployed them. We ensured that all the current existing systems are operating at a normal rate. If we expect any anomalies, we'll know exactly when and what happened where. Cryptographic verification of integrity and patch levels are in place. That provides us more in-depth information and keeps in check about the systems. If anything external walks into the room, we'll definitely be aware of this. Number two, the access control reset has been also in place. New authentication keys have been issued. Legacy sessions have been already revoked. And lastly, the zero trust enforcement has already been in place, but it had been reset properly, just to make sure that the guardrails, which you earlier mentioned, they have been updated as well.
Alex, again, this word guardrail is going to cause me, I have to submit a report on where we're at. I appreciate the effort, and that's coming from the SOC, but we're seeing more questions where, okay, you're keeping on saying we've added these new guardrails, but I could just as well turn around and say, and furthering the conversation that's happening in the chat as well, it was a PDF at the end of the day that was uploaded that compromised us. So were we lacking even the most basic of guardrails? And I understand that may not be directly related to the recovery discussion, but if I'm going to ask you what's the baseline for a safe return to system restoration, I need to know, did we lack even the most basic thing that a PDF was weaponized against us?
Well, I think we need to take into context and look retrospectively at how did the system get designed, built, and rolled out. And it was designed in 2022, was being built out in 2023, and that's when generative AI first hit the market. And it was bolted on to the solution as a cost-saving measure and to make it so that we can do much more with less staff. However, a lot of the frameworks, a lot of the threat modeling against AI has only been released as of this year. So it does look like those controls did not exist in the system, and sadly we were not looking iteratively on this on how we're building and improving and optimizing this system over time. So it is a novel attack. We don't see too many attacks against AI systems, probably mostly because we can't detect them, but that's a different story. But this is a prime example of where we built something with the technology and the knowledge we had, and we really haven't kept up with the current state of affairs.
I'd like to add something on top.
Sure.
As Alex mentioned, that the generative AI, it started back into the market back in 2023. Now, it took decades of experience to understand about the CVEs and even the fundamental vulnerabilities about the original frameworks and legacy systems that we had. Considering the fact that AI engines are so new, it's premature to even decide that what sort of guardrails will protect us against all sorts of threats outside existing. That does not mean AI is bad, it's just a simple sense of hostility that we have against AI, simple sense of judgment, considering the previous systems or legacy systems have been so safe, versus the new guardrails which we're looking at, new things that we are looking at. It's not a simple yes or no that PDF can threaten you or not. It's how it can threaten you and what are the roots of it which infects the AI engines in what senses. It is still a black box at the end.
Listen, Shreya, I respect that, but at the same time, this risk would have been communicated to the CISO, and if the CISO accepted that risk, that might explain why the CISO is not here. But I see where you're coming from. But I'm still very concerned by this notion of these guardrails and then why deploy a system and sort of accept this amount of risk. And this really inhibits me from thinking about what safe recovery is going to look like. If I'm not mistaken, I did see a hand up to my right. Yeah, please go ahead. Oh, that's a great question. Do you want to comment on that, Shruti?
No, I would say there has to be an RTO and RPO established in terms of business continuity and disaster recovery, and that would be more to a question for Amit here, IRCC. And Amit, to your last point, what is stopping you from going live as soon as possible? This is stopping you. You have to respect your RTO and RPO, and you have to actually answer to your customers. Those are everybody out there, all the IRCC customers. As Octavia mentioned, there's also the fact that you're losing trust by the second. And you're losing also, in an implied way, corporate trust. You're losing money, you're bleeding money. So all of that put together, that's what forcing you to go up as fast as possible, and also in the most secure way. So maybe the most important or the most I would say the least invoked services should go online, and you have to figure out a plan. How would you go? But you have to go online.
I agree with you, Shruti. So I agree with you. However, I also want to emphasize on the fact that you said in the most secure way. And that is something that we are focusing on right now, to go back in the most secure way. And what does that most secure way look like for us? Do we have failover practices in place? Do we have secure backups in place? Are we the backup, the containers that we have restored the backups from, can we 100% say that they are safe and they have not been compromised? And that is something that our main focus is right now. We do understand that we were compromised. Yes, we can talk about that many times, or we can work on what to do from here on, and that's exactly our priority is right now.
So I have a question though, how long does that take, right? Because what I'm used to is that security should be going along with technology and should be moving quickly. So if we're saying that, if the SOC and our incident response team is saying we're ready, we can actually bring this up, why are we now saying that we need to slow down to get this back up? In my mind, time is money, right? And so if there's a situation where we're saying that we can't actually enable the business because of security, then what exactly are we doing here?
I think it's to mitigate risks, right? And that comes back to a point that has been circling in my head, like what does safe recovery look like? And then furthermore, just looking at the guardrails that we have in place, I don't see additional safeguards put in place here. I see us bringing the systems back up and just reissuing, right, terminating things, and then, redeploying. But I don't see additional safeguards to prevent this from reoccurring again. So as an example, right, like a detonation chamber or something to prevent that PDF from happening again.
Jared, I have a question from what was asked earlier. Is there a defined RTO and RPO for the government as per GCMP?
It would depend on their mandates. So,
Okay.
and on the criticality of the system and the sensitivity of the system as well. So it's a case-by-case basis per system.
So I have a question. So I see the monitoring activated for our EDR. I think that's one of the systems that can like flag or monitor. At least that's what I was told. Like, is there a way for us to stop and block things there? Because again, we just need to move quickly at this point. So whatever we're missing, how quickly is it for us to deploy that?
So the monitoring is to watch things when it's normal, but we're also going to be using it to detect anomalies just in case we did not fully eradicate the threat. But to Jared's point, we do need to do some serious user acceptance testing, but prior to that, I guess it is doing security testing, because we are deploying something that arguably still has a known vulnerability, and I'm not sure we have any compensating controls to stop that beyond not ingesting things and parsing it through the AI engine. That does inhibit the system quite a bit, so that's something that we need to take into consideration. But again, lights are blinking on the network. It is running, but we're not opening it up to the public because we don't trust it. We're not sure it actually works. And we also have to recognize that there is a backlog, a queue of data that as soon as we turn that on, it will likely overload our systems. Alternatively, we delete it, and now we've lost a bunch of data. So we have a bit of a dilemma on multiple fronts.
So I would just want to add to this. If this is the case, if in fact it sounds like we don't have rock-solid 5 nines of reliability service, there's no way the Minister of IRCC is going to agree to rolling out this very nervous, tentative system. It's not until we get it rock-solid. So if it takes months to sort this out, the government will wait it out. There's no life and death issue here.
I feel like you guys are saying that we know where the problems are, but we are not addressing them.
Yeah, I'm going to ask everyone right now, and we expected that this recovery model is going to get us into a position where we're going to get into a heated discussion. Just to give you a few moments to take things in, I did see that there's a hand up in the audience very quickly. Yes, your question.
Yeah, so I have a two-part question.
Sure.
So what is the long-term risk of the integrity of the whole Canadian immigration system?
Yep.
And how will IRCC prevent the stolen data that for being used to create counterfeit documents?
Oof. Well, you just added to the heat when I was trying to cool things down, but thank you very much for that. I will bring up this question again. Just bear with me for a few moments, but we do have a conversation where this will come up, because you are right. We have not actually said anything about how the data that was encrypted, what has happened with it. So that is something that's going to come up. Alex, I have a tweet that has come into me directly, and I don't want to bring it up because it contains foul language. So we'll stick to what we're seeing right now in terms of the IT status report. Alex, the question is, why don't you lazy farts do your job and not use AI and process people the way you were doing it on the system without using that dumb AI system? So essentially what they're saying, and I'll mute it into simple terms, yeah, just bring back the system to what it was before you introduced AI, and you should remove that threat altogether.
That is one consideration, but do we actually have the staff to support the system without the AI? Yep. Innovation's cool, technology's cool, but if we don't have the failback to the regular process, we're going to have a different type of pain. And either way, and this is a dilemma, right? The government has two options. Both are equally bad. Which one are we going to pick?
Understood. Octavia, were you adding something to that?
I was just going to ask a question.
Sure,
And
please.
I think it goes back to Amit's question, like, are we ready to fully put the system on? Is this the system full term? Are we doing something in step process? Like, what exactly, can you just reiterate how we're actually taking these actions?
Well, we were able to do some horse trading and get some infrastructure up faster than the SSC portal was suggesting, which is great. It is about 80% what the normal system had, so we did remove a few of the things that we had in that system. Nothing overly critical, but mostly for performance and scalability. I believe we do need to use that environment. That's the one that is known good as it can be. It does need additional stress testing. However, once the dust settles, once we've had some sleep, we do need to consider, do we rebuild this environment again with the lessons that we've learned from this incident, and build it properly to the actual spec of the environment, as well as potentially putting on compensating controls to deal with the known and future problems that we may have with using such novel technologies as AI.
I recognize where you're going with this, Alex, where you don't want to bring up the systems only for it to come down again. I will bring the question back from the audience is based on all the work that has been done so far, do we have any conclusive evidence on what happened with the data that was encrypted? Do we have any information about what other follow-up attacks might be coming before we go live again? Is there anything that your work has uncovered for us?
What I would say is we have rolled the keys. So all data is encrypted, and we have rolled the keys. Is there a chance that malware, that ransomware, or crippleware did pull keys from memory? That is a chance, absolutely, but we don't know that. So, the post-forensic review of the compromise environment will uncover that. That will probably be weeks and months to fully gather that. But let's not make assumptions and jump to conclusions that the data has been lost. It is designed that if keys are lost, we can roll them and re-encrypt the data. But right now, it's ciphertext. So arguably, it is if stolen, if accessed, wouldn't be of much value to the attacker. Now, again, there is a risk that they were able to pull keys out of memory, and we have to try to validate that as much as possible. But that's also a known unknown at this point.
I'm going to add on top of it. Thank you, Alex, for bringing the point of the key rotations. Of course, the sessions have been revoked and all of those basic nuances and fundamentals have been taken care of. On top of it, we also analyzed through and confirmed from the forensic report that the amount of data which was taken out of the system, it's hardly in kilobytes or megabytes, which points me back to the direction of when Alex mentioned that there's a crippleware. Even though, yes, as he's rightly pointed out, that it's going to take weeks and months for the ciphers and the forensic teams to confirm what data was taken out. However, the volume of it, which is kilobytes or megabytes, suggests to me that none of the data, which is on a bulk amount or something, is being exfiltrated out of the immigration ecosystem, let's say.
I gotta jump in here. Like every time we do an incident, we're always trying to solve the murder mystery here. Not important. Absolutely not important right now. It's about recovering the systems and making sure that we can continue to serve our people and also our immigrants and refugees. So getting that system online and making sure it can reduce some of the pain that this incident has caused is, in my opinion, the highest priority.
All right. Were you going to add anything?
Is it the highest priority of putting the systems back up with the possibility of them going down again? Or is our highest priority to ensure when we put the systems back up that they don't go down again or back to the same situation again? Are we ready to face the same situation again in a different dynamics? Is something that I am struggling within myself to say is this the right time to put the systems back up? Yes, I understand there is a financial impact. Octavia has said that, but are we ready to take another financial impact if we have somehow overlooked one of that little things that we should have looked at it a little bit deeper to make sure that our systems are strong and safe at that point?
I mean, if we get our
100%.
red team in, would that help suffice to meet your concerns right now? We can get a pen test done on it right now. We'll bring the best of the best in, and that can validate that at least the low-hanging fruit exposures are covered.
And I'm willing to support that. We need to get the system back up and running.
Okay. So I do have a question that's been actually sent to me directly, and I can understand why it was sent directly. And I recognize that it's sometimes just when we're talking about this and we're playing this out, just stepping out of character for a moment, it can be very appealing, and it has a lot of spice to it when we introduce an insider threat. But I do want to weave that in right now. Whoever you bring in now to do work within a government system for testing, you already have suspicion that something happened at CyberX Solutions. How do you validate the people that are coming in to even test your systems at this point? Jarrett, is there anything, I surely don't know how government works, but you've been very close to it. Is there anything that you can shed in terms of this? Who gets to come in and gets clearance to run such a high-profile pen test?
Pass. The Government of Canada has pre-qualified vendors for this specific type of scenario, right? So it would be a threat-led pen test, essentially, and then probably ongoing red teaming, as Alex had suggested. So everybody has been cleared. They all have the clearances. They all have the capability and the know-how, right? And we're looking at infrastructure and application security folks for testing. And the important thing to remember here at the end of the day, in a real scenario like this involving the Government of Canada, security is always going to be balanced with public safety and trust at the end of the day, especially when we're talking about a vulnerable population, right, that we're dealing with. It's a balancing act.
All right, we'll take that, and I see quite a few engagements that are happening as well, but Shruti, I'd like to come back to you as well, because we have heard RTO, we've heard the term RPO, and again, I've had this question, hey, can you explain what these acronyms are? And then if we can have a bit of a discussion about the fact that we haven't really gone deeper into our BCP. So can you help just the folks that have requested, what do we mean by RTO and RPO, and why is that factored into the recovery discussion?
So it simply means the recovery time that you are committing to get your systems back up. Initially, when I said RTO and RPO, Jared brought up a very good point. It depends on the systems that you're talking about. So your initial BCP plan starts by categorizing your system and what it contains. And depending on the criticality or the value of that system, what exactly it contains, you assign a criticality. And based on that criticality, you give it a time to recover. And that's how that time is assigned. And when you commit to that, and this is one of the most requested document or circulated document, or sometime it comes in very handy during litigations too, to come back to you and say, this is what you committed to, and you were not able to respect that timeline. So when we commit to something, we absolutely have to, like I would say, keep the records of what that is and act exactly like we committed. Otherwise, it's going to come down to a lawsuit.
Fair enough, and I will just thank you again to the CyberX team for sharing this with me on ODTN.news. Interestingly enough, Jared, to the point that you brought up, there's actually an article on ODTN.news, and again, just so everyone knows, this is playing into the hypothetical scenario. This article was published. I won't be bringing it up on the screen, but I'll just tell you it's come to my attention, and I've shared the link in the chat as well. On ODTN News, September 23rd, which was a day ago, an article by Jordan Okeke says, the title reads, "Experts warn federal contracting rules leave gaps in critical infrastructure security. At issue is how the federal government selects, vets, and monitors private sector contractors." This too becomes an area of discussion. I will share, I hope folks get the chance to read this article because it does open up more questions. But that said, Alex, again to you very directly, and I believe that this is a very straightforward question, is So in the midst of all of this, is there a patch from the vendor that has come forward as well?
It's relying on a module, or sorry, a library on NPM. So we are at the behest of the developer, who is not our third party. It's actually a fourth party. So no.
Care to elaborate a little bit more?
Well, as we all know, software is built of other software, and a lot of that software is actually developed outside of the immediate team. So we are at the behest of the developer, wherever they are in the world, maintaining that package. So I'm hoping somebody has submitted a bug report on his GitHub page to see if that will expedite getting that fix.
All right, there was a hand up, and I got a note. Yes, please, go ahead. Sorry, I did not see you. My apologies. Please go ahead. My bad.
And if I may piggyback on that exact question, earlier it was said that when the system was actually came out or developed by the vendor, it was 2022. Did we not have any patches in between to update what has been coming out? Because commercially available AIs generally have updates coming out every few months. It's generally once every quarter. So are we looking into why we never received an update?
So, AI is still pretty novel for us and the technical community at large. And a lot of the threats that we are likely to see against AI haven't materialized. At least, this is one of the first ones. And that's because the vulnerabilities in AI some are known and some are not known. And because AI LLM models are generally black box, we don't know what's happening inside them at any given time, and they can be ticking time bombs with a sleeper agent that once you give it a proper command. So, back to Steve's question, there would have been maintenance with this system over the last few years, but there was no patch on a threat that they didn't understand or wouldn't necessarily know about. This combined a vulnerability of an image parsing library with having the LLM parse imagery and then pull data out of it, and then essentially be a code injection. And again, that's a vulnerability that we all recognize, but from the application side, not from an LLM side. And there are, I'm sure there's lots of job postings for AI security people with 10 years of experience, but unfortunately, AI has only been around in the publicly accessible realm for 2-3 years. So there is a bit of a innovation bias problem here, that we are racing to use these cool technologies and not necessarily understanding the potential vulnerabilities that exist and the threats that will materialize out of those.
I would just say, I think what I heard earlier today was that it wasn't the software that was developed, it was the architecture or something like that. So it was more about the design. And so I think this is a perfect time for us to rebuild and re-engineer the way that we're actually doing it, because even if you have, my understanding is even if you actually have a design, a patch won't fix a design. That's what I was told. That's right.
Unless it's really good.
Unless it's a really, really, really good patch, seasoned with AI.
But to your point, is a patch will fix the vulnerability in the module, but it turns out that the LLM we're using is susceptible to seeing something that is supposed to be perceived as text, but then executed as code. And that means that we probably need either a new model or, and I'm sorry to say this, Ali, we might need guardrails.
All right. Well, as you said, fourth party, and everyone online was like, yep, you had third party, fourth party. This is becoming a really big and expensive party. We have about 20 minutes to go, and I really now, we've looked at the depths of this scenario and what we're dealing with. It is extremely tense. We have implemented a few new security processes or upended some of them. We're trying to work through back and forth, but I want to come down to some very, very clear metrics on what needs to happen for recovery to truly take place. First, I want to go to Walter. From your perspective, let's focus on the communication side. From a recovery standpoint, yes, we have to deal with the ongoing situation with all of the fake news and so on and so forth. But how long do you see, and I'm weaving in a couple of thoughts that have been shared as well, how long of a communications campaign do you see with this? And what are some strategic steps that need to be taken? Is it, like you mentioned, the Prime Minister's office? What has to happen over the next little while to ensure that the recovery is not just, hey, the systems are back up, that the recovery focuses on building trust so that we get users back onto our system and users trusting this very critical piece of infrastructure?
Yeah, so we're talking about priorities. What's the priority here? And because this is a public-facing government service, the number one priority is reassuring and reestablishing confidence in the government of Canada. So the government is not going to, now once bitten, twice shy, right? So having had a problem, a significant problem, and obviously somebody is at fault within the government for making live a service that obviously had some flaws with it. So there's going to be some accountability later on that. Immediately, we've talked about all the things about communicating, having the senior people as the spokespeople in front of the cameras, talking about what they're doing, and keeping it fairly simple and understandable for Canadians, what the problem is and what they're doing about it. So to get to the point about, so how long does this go? It goes until we're fairly comfortable that the services have been restored and that there have been no new problems or the problem has not reemerged, so that there's confidence. We all should know that the media attention of the average citizen is pretty short, and so once there's a feeling in the public that, okay, the government was naughty and got into trouble, but they've fixed themselves and they're on the path to restoring expected service levels, then their attention will shift elsewhere. Mind you, good journalists will keep hounding the government to be accountable for why did this happen, who's at fault, and what, if you will, disciplinary action is happening. So there will be a follow-up needed, and that will come in the due course of time. And good journalists will hold the government to account on that. So we should all be expecting this. So one, the media firestorm will end once services are reasonably well established and and folks have moved on to other problems. But there will be that follow-up piece that's needed to be done. It's like the full accountability, and that's what we want in a democratic country, right?
All right, and I will say that we are seeing reports that on ODTN news that says government stabilizes systems, but trust gap remains. Again, the meaning of what is a stabilized system still remains out there. But Lionel, this is something that is coming to us in the media as well, where the deep fake issue, and I'll read this out verbatim, the AI and the deep fake issue, from a law enforcement perspective, is there going to be an effort to try and determine who was behind this? And if it is identified that it is within Canadian context or a Canadian actor or someone within your jurisdiction, are there certain actions that get taken? Or do you put out any deterrence messages or trying to warn people not to participate in these activities? This is a fairly new area of work for a lot of people, and they don't realize that there could be some law enforcement-based repercussions. Any light that you can shed on this?
Yes, absolutely. So for people that some of you might be aware, but it's been actually at least a couple of years that the Canadian government have been thinking of anything related to online harm and how we can prevent that. There was actually at some point a discussion about the bill C-63. So right now we have actually services with the Canadian Cybersecurity Center that is part of the CSE, so the Communication Security Establishment, where when it comes to building that trust, right, that we was talking about, now there is stronger and strengthening collaboration moving forward with RSCC and other government agencies, where the idea is really to leverage as much as we can all the resources that the government has put in place with those agencies that are here to protect Canadian interests. So we also have intelligence agencies such as the CSIS that we're also now making sure that we can not only take back any deep fake, but also going as far as identifying where exactly it was coming from, who is beyond any type of post, and I guess the defamation, and making sure that this is prevented from the future, from happening in the future. So all those different government agencies right now, there is now stronger links and collaboration that will happen moving forward.
Okay. Appreciate that, Lionel. So from a communication standpoint, we are seeing messaging that's going out there. There seems to be a wider 3 to even 6 month strategy around dealing with this scenario, and a whole bunch of other things that have resources that have to be released, trainings and workshops and whatever else have you, so that the public becomes more aware. And I think this will be very important, especially as Operation Defend the North continues into other regions as well. From a technical standpoint, so thank you, comms team, and thank you, Lionel, for your perspective. From a technical perspective, Alex, the team has suggested to us that the steps that you have taken. We're hearing a little bit about some of the patching and some of the issues around that. My bigger question right now is, as you rebuild, integration testing will be critical to this. Please tell me that that has been factored into your recovery timelines and framework.
Yeah, we are doing integration testing now. Ran into a small glitch, and I'm a little bit frustrated, but it looks like the database backend doesn't have any licensing. And I went through the SEC portal, and unfortunately it does not have an option for me to be procuring any more licensing. So I think we got to reach out to a salesperson to figure out how to get that. But I'm not sure if we can pull licensing off of the impaired environment, but we sort of have a problem where we can't write any data to the database.
And you're telling us this now?
Just found out about it. Again, these are complex systems, and just to put it in perspective, we are the monitoring, detection, and response team, not the architects of this environment. Just luckily, we've got a lot of great people on the team that have a lot of experience with these complex and challenging environments, but we just made the assumption that we wouldn't have to deal with the licensing at the 11th hour.
So, Amit, does your team have the contact so that we can get the license?
I think so. Yes, I do understand the license has expired. However, all I can say is I'm sorry at this point.
No, we don't need a sorry. Can you fix it?
But yes, it's my responsibility. I'll engage my team to fix that 100%. Yes.
Well, Amit, since you're on the hot seat and you said you're sorry, I will have to play on that to say, look, I have been very aggressively going after the SOC team, and of course you have been dealing with the media. Is it fair to say that the relationship and how the support services were run through with the third-party contractor have also brought up multiple questions about, I'm sorry to say, your own processes?
It's an interesting question.
But the silence walked in like a third person between the two of us. So.
Yeah, so all I can say is we are ensuring whatever is best right now. Yes, there were some gaps, 100%. No doubt about that. We do realize, and we are learning from that, and that's why I'm very adamant on making sure that when we are filling up those gaps, that the same kind of situation does not surface anymore. And yes, we have learned a lot from this. Obviously, there are going to be some conversations internally that are going to reshape how we are going to architect this whole approach again. But at this point, we are trying to understand. We are trying to focus on whether it's the right time to put the systems back up. Whether obviously it's high priority right now. We also want to make sure that all the safeguards in place. We also want to make sure all the licenses are in place, and that everybody on the team is on the hook right now to ensure that everything is done as efficiently as possible with as much detail as possible, and yes, I mean, it talks a lot about
Amit, I know
the entire
that
infrastructure.
Alex wants to chime in, and before Alex
Yeah.
chimes in, look, for the sake of the audience, just very quickly, Amit, we understand the pressures. When we looked at what happened at the city of Hamilton, it came down to MFA not being spread across the environment, and insurance got denied, et cetera. I get it, that there are gaps, but these are glaring gaps that clearly nobody was even looking at. So the concern that we have is genuinely, we can have all these recovery metrics, but the risk of reinfection is extremely high. Alex?
Well, certainly there's pressure to get the system back online. And this is a challenge that we face, spinning tires, trying to think about how complex this system is. Now, I've been pulling rabbits out of my hat all day, and I'm not sure how many rabbits I have left, but I can go log on to Pirate Bay and see if I can get a license if we want to go that route.
No.
Or not, or Amit, you can make a phone call. We just need that phone call, man.
Yep, absolutely. You can count on that phone call.
Yes, Alex, we appreciate you trying to go above and beyond underwater and into other stratospheres to get these licenses, but it is clear that Amit has recognized the issues that are existing within this entire process. And I will say that as we're leading through this scenario, I'm very appreciative of his leadership in that he has identified where we've had a major issue and owned up to it as well. This might have other repercussions for us, but that is something perhaps for another discussion. Shruti, if I can come to you at this point, we're hearing about the steps that the team wants to take. We're hearing very clear acknowledgement from the IRCC side, and I'm very grateful for that as well. Are there any other things from a recovery perspective as we are planning ahead and you head up strategic planning around our infrastructure? Is there anything specific that we've missed out here or anything that you want to emphasize on as we move ahead?
I will want to close out on that vendor piece that we started with. Exactly. We still need more visibility. Our focus so far through all the modules or all the stages has been to make sure we are in a good shape, recovered and back up and running. And as we go through more towards the end of recovery, one of the pieces would also to understand the impact of what has been lost or what has happened to us. It's also the assessment of it. And I would want to focus on the vendor assessment, particularly the vendor in question. What exactly happened and what led to this would be one of the major factors here. I understand we are taking help from them to get us back up and running as quickly as possible, but a thorough assessment would be part of it. We got the comms checked. That's great. We have the technical aspects under control. We are up and running, trying our best. But the whole point of the whole thing started with the vendor as we are slowly determining. So getting a full closure or as much as possible at this stage and a proper audit, maybe if I can recommend at a later stage, would be another piece that I want to add on.
Fantastic. I got a message in the chat saying last row before black curtain midway, there's a hand up. Whose hand was that? Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
Just because it said that the vendors are approved, which means nothing because somebody got it anyway. So I want to know how law enforcement, and I'm so sorry I can't read that more, you as well, are going to do about preventing suspicious individuals.
It's a fair question.
Monitoring and testing.
Oh, it's a great question. Lionel, do you want to chime in?
Yes, so absolutely. So like I was saying, so we right now have some government agencies such as the Canadian Canadian Center for Cybersecurity and also the CAC, so Communication Security Establishment. And then what I wanted to mention is that the work that we're doing right now is to make sure that we support in a better way and in a stronger way any federal agency, including IRCC, which means that when it comes to support, when it comes to procurement, for instance, or also background check and all of that, we'll actually be working now together in a better way to make sure that we have, I guess, more visibility into who has access, not just like on a physical, in a physical way in terms of like space and location, but also the vendors that we work with.
And was that Gabriella who asked the question? Because, okay, perfect, because she did say, your arms are going to be ripped out with how long you've had your hand up. My bad. It is a little bit challenging, being a little bit darky, but I appreciate you having your patience, and Jenny for bringing this up on the chat as well. We have about 6 to 7 minutes left before we go into a very quick final wrap-up module with Darktrace. Amit, there's been a suggestion also that has come up with the chat, in the chat, which is something that we may have to consider. And I'll just read it out verbatim if you bear with me for a moment. And that is potentially, the suggestion is moving the CTO position and having for now the CISO chair the dev and staging environment as well. Perhaps, Amit, this may not be targeted for you for a response, but Alex, any thoughts on this change in chain of command for this period?
I've actually taken a day off, so I'm not paying attention right now.
Any thoughts from Jared, from your perspective? Do we have to have some changes in chain of command given the security gaps?
It's a joint effort, right? And there's a dotted reporting line up in the government of Canada. So it's a two-person system, and that would fall underneath the CISO anyways, to oversee and coordinate the training and the testing and the validation of the results. Don't forget there's an internal team there that's also doing pen testing on the application, in addition to other departments and agencies like CCCS that'll be coming in and doing those assessments as well. So it's verified and validated, right? So I don't think there's any need to make that change whatsoever. I don't see that happening.
Fair enough. Appreciate that response. I'm going to just look around if there are any other more comments, anything that we feel that we're missing from a recovery perspective. We've spoken about what the system rebuild will look like. We've identified how long this might take, and this will take a significant period of time. Is there anything else, Octavia or Alex or anyone else, anything we feel that we're missing at this point?
I'm feeling quite refreshed after having a bit of a day off after waiting for the recovery to happen. I think again, we have to think like this isn't just a technology problem. The technology's up and running. We're testing it. We are licensing it. We're solving those problems. Next, it's now communicating out to the embassies, the border partners, and things like that, that the system is coming back online, and the staggered resumption plan. Certainly, if they all turn on the things, we're going to have the system overloaded, particularly since we're only about 80% of the hardware capacity that this system was designed for. So communicating that, likely we need to prioritize which parts get on first, and that might be borders because those are most important to the country, but it also could be the embassies where there are people's camping outside. And those are generally in places that is not that comfortable to be camping outside for long periods of time. So those would be the considerations outside of IT.
All right.
I would just say one thing we probably need to consider, and this happened, if you guys can remember, a couple of years ago, not a cybersecurity attack, but just the backlog process with Nexus. And so I think we need to actually do something similar where we shut down some of the offices, right? And then we actually throttle the traffic that comes in when we get the systems back on. Simply because if we don't want to get to a situation where we're overloading the system and hit it on capacity, we don't have the finances to do that, right? And so we just need to make sure that we're actually staggering how we actually handle the operations of processing these things. So I think the operational part is something that we are missing, but that's a whole nother conversation, but that's the thing that we need to think about going forward.
All right, Shruti, go ahead.
Yeah, just one more point, and somebody already brought it up. I'm trying to bring it back to full circle about the compromised or lost data. What exactly is going to happen? How would IRCC, this is more of an open question for the SOC team or the IRCC team, to consider how, if actually a data is lost, how do we assess the impact of it, and what do we do about it? If it's actually been compromised, what has been compromised? There was a conversation about biometric data that has been compromised initially. Of course, there is PII involved in here, and what would be the impact of it, and what essentially we do about it. If it's lost, how do we move on from there?
Yeah, absolutely. And Gabriella, I see your post as well, where we would need a comprehensive report to even understand how not just what happened from a technical perspective, but also physical security. How were the systems accessed, and how was this made possible? So these are all very, very valid topics that have been brought up. And I thank everybody at this panel for bringing some of these difficult conversations to the table. If I had to do a checklist of the items that we have recommended for recovery, then the first thing spilling off from what the SOC had suggested was clean baselines deployed to our AI servers and critical systems, rebuilding much of our architecture with new multi-factor authentication, and then also validating all of the backups and ensuring that they're restored for intake. At the same time, public counter messaging launched with trusted voices to rebuild a lot of the trust. And then, of course, detailed analysis of how exactly did this happen. And perhaps going forward, as once systems come back up, and maybe this is a discussion that will come up in the lessons learned, is who and where does the blame lie entirely in this scenario. It is not easy to have these discussions without wanting to pivot into, well, why did this happen and who is to blame? And while Amit did take on a lot of responsibility, the purpose here was not just to do that, but was to also make sure we have some clear recovery steps going forward. As I said before, the process here is not just about bringing back the data, but about restoring trust. And that will take a significant amount of time, not just trust with the public, but trust with our internal systems and within our teams and with our contractors as well. With that, as I bring Module 4 to a close, Module 5 will begin in approximately 10 to 15 minutes, and it will be a short discussion led by our friends from Darktrace as well around some of the lessons learned. We'll take some of your questions as well, and we'll hopefully come to a very strong conclusion on how we could prevent some of these things from happening again and set the stage up for where Operation Defend the North goes next. Thank you all for joining us both in person and online for Module 4. Thank you to the panelists, and we'll see you in approximately 10 to 15 minutes with our closing module. Thank you.